if we turn to World of Islam in the 8th century, this is between pages 58 and 59. Here you see this huge, vast, united empire spreading over lots of areas. Maybe with a slight exaggeration on the front of India, for example, but anyway, something like that. That is the sudden spread of Islam within a century in this series of huge military conquests. Now, the justification for the military conquests could be two ways. One is that you would say the whole message was to claim the earth for God's rule. So the Muslims sallied forth, even from the time of the Prophet, towards Syria. Another, proposed by Professor Wilfred Madelung, who is a German scholar who writes in English and lives in England, and who is sort of a Shi'i sympathizer, although he's not a Muslim. He says that, no, that's not how it was. You have to separate the Prophet's time from the time of the early caliphs. And the early caliphs were responsible for the policy of making this huge empire and going outside of Arabia in this huge series of military conquests. And there is considerable mystery about the mechanism of how exactly that worked and how these settled states, albeit they weakened from 25 years of war between them and their alienation of their own populations, which was certainly very great, how they were overcome in only a few battles by people whom they had always had contempt for, the tribal Arabians, and suddenly how the Muslim state was established at this large scale, spread across the entire Middle East, reunited the Middle East, eliminated the artificial boundary that had separated the Roman and Persian empires for 700 years. How exactly that could have come to pass and stuck is something that's a bit of a mystery. And especially the Muslim military arrangements and what those were exactly aren't entirely clear. One factor is, which is sort of indicated in Surah 61 in the Quran, is that some new type of military tactics were in use that did not exist before, because the Muslims are urged to fight in a battle line as if they're a solid building, whereas that's totally contrary to Arabian raiding tactics that had been traditional there. So there was some kind of new military order that came from somewhere, and how that came about is not known. But probably there's some connection with the military organization that existed in the northern countries before, perhaps especially in the Roman Empire. Another factor was that certain units of the armies of the Roman and especially the Persian Empire were just inducted into the Muslim armies, so they augmented the power of the Muslim state. The Persian cavalry, for example, although they were not Arabs, came over to the Muslim side and were duly enrolled in one of the Muslim tribal groupings as a tribe, as if they were an Arab tribe, and then functioned under the caliphate like that. Also, there were other odd military units that came out of the Iranian state that had apparently been Iranian military units that became Muslim ones. One were called the Siyabaja. The Siyabaja came from Zabag, or Zabaj, which was the country of, is a corruption of the name Srivijaya, which was a Indonesian kingdom in Sumatra. So somehow Sumatrans in the beginning of the 7th century had already made their appearance in Iran and were a military unit there and were added to the Muslim forces. There is also another group called the Zut, and the Zut is a corruption of the name Jat. Does anyone know who the Jats became? The Jats are an Indian caste who came from perhaps Rajasthan in western India. because the Persian Empire bordered on that, they got these people and moved them to the other side of their empire, settling them in Iraq, where they became a military unit. The Muslims moved them to the frontier between what is now Syria and Turkey to face the Byzantine Empire. When the Byzantine Empire was able to recover and conquer a little piece of northern Syria in the 10th century, they took these people whom they deemed untrustworthy and deported them to the other side of their empire and placed them in Bulgaria and Serbia and those areas. And from there, they spread out through Europe and the Middle East. Who are they? The Gypsies. The Gypsies were the Zut, and they had a role as a military unit in the Persian Empire. And it's well known linguistically from the language of the Gypsies, Romani, that their language is Indian. And so there's no question about that. So there are a lot of population movements that European people are not aware about that occurred.